Hello? Hello? Who is this? Nikki? Joan? Charvi? Who is this? What have you done? Charvi, what have you done to my girl?
Hey guys, this is the DemocraZy podcast brought to you by the League of Women Voters of Virginia. We are part of the Youth Council. I'm Charvi.
And I'm Emma. This is our pilot episode, New Phone Who Dis, Stranger Things reference, brought to you by Charvi. And we are a podcast that is essentially focused on everything youth voter engagement, civic education, voter turnout. And I'm really, really excited to talk about that today in our first ever episode.
Yeah, we're super excited. We have a lot of cool things in store. We've got a civic case on political efficacy, and we've got a really nice interview with our favorite president, Miss Joan Porte.
Yes, so get ready for an amazing podcast. You can listen to this on every platform. Follow us on Instagram at DemocraZy_pod, as well as on YouTube and Twitter at the League of Women Voters.
Yeah.
And you can find us on Spotify at DemocraZy.
All right, let's get started. That was not on time. It's all right.
That lovely intro, which we may or may not have been on time for, was brought to you by our friend Peter. I am giving him a Chipotle burrito for making that. As well as our amazing logo, which you see on the bottom right corner of your screen, was brought to you by one of my best friends in the world, Maddie. She did an amazing job with that on very short notice, and we really, really appreciate Maddie and Peter for coming in on the effort that we wrote them into despite their complete uninvolvement in the rest of this podcast. So
yeah, we're super appreciative of them.
Thank you to both of them. Yes.
Oh, yeah, so you had a bit of a Joyce Byers moment there, didn't you?
I've never seen Stranger Things. I hate to break it to you. I know Charvi's kind of mad at me about it.
Okay, I'm not that crazy about it.
She is. She wrote this whole script. But I will say things in our government and our country and the world do seem a little bit upside down these days. So you weren't entirely wrong.
That's not a cute pun.
I'm sorry.
But yeah, things, it's hard to read the news. There's just so much going on domestically, internationally. It's a lot to keep up with, and it can be a little bit discouraging, but we really hope that DemocraZy can help y'all out, and, especially early 2000s babies, Gen Z, kind of get a sense of what's happening and how you can interact with your world in a way that you feel like you're an active citizen and you're making an impact.
And to jump off that, it would be absolutely amazing if all of you would consider following the League of Women Voters. You can follow them on pretty much any social media platform, and I would also recommend getting the membership. It's a really great thing to be a part of, especially, I'm assuming you're interested in democracy and civics based on your attention to this podcast. So it's a really great organization in case you want to do more if you're underage like us and are unfortunately unable to vote.
All right.
Yeah.
Speaking about being underaged and being unable to vote, I think it's time to talk about our civic case of the day. What do you think?
So Civic Cases is basically our segment of our podcast where we're going to talk about one big issue. So our big issue for today is political efficacy and youth voter engagement. But in the future, if you follow us on Instagram at democracy_pod, like I said earlier.
Yeah, y'all can send us some questions.
Plug.
Yeah. Tell us what you want us to talk about.
Tell us anything. We will talk about pretty much anything we want to, as long as we follow the nonpartisan guidelines of the league and generally keep it applicable to the themes of this podcast. Pretty much anything is up in the air.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. What's our topic for today, you asked? I'm glad you did. So our topic for today is political efficacy. Mentioned that before. And Emma's going to give us a definition, but this is really supposed to lay the foundation for why we want to do this podcast. And we're going to talk about youth voter turnout and maybe some issues there, some barriers. Yeah. So, Emma, take it away.
So, if you've taken AP Gov, like I have, and like Charvi is in the midst of
currently
right now.
Taking it.
Great class, by the way. Highly recommend everyone to go take AP Gov. You will have learned about political efficacy, but if you haven't, or if you're in the beginning like Charvi is, I'll give a short summary. So, political efficacy is really easily broken down into two categories, internal and external. The importance of the two is that they kind of work together to tell us the state of our democracy and whether we're living in a healthily democratic system.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it's kind of at an all-time low right now. I believe it hit that low in like 2023.
Really?
Yeah, unfortunately, but it's still a really good thing to look at kind of throughout time, and it's a hard thing to measure because a lot of it is based on your perception of yourself and your perception of the government.
Like internal essence or whatever.
So internal political efficacy, like you just mentioned, is basically an individual's perception of their own competence and like how much they know about the government and how well they think they can contribute to what's happening in the world, whereas external is more about the system itself and kind of how well someone thinks the system responds to their vote, their lobbying, their voice, their social media activism, and whether their elected officials are listening to what they have to say.
Yeah. And to me, it sounds like, Emma, they go really hand in hand. From a youth perspective, I guess our external efficacy is going to be lower because we don't have a lot of representation in Congress or in our different branches of government. And because of that, we don't really see issues relevant to the youth and our future, like student loan debt and climate change. We don't see those issues being addressed. We don't see enough bills coming on the floor that are going to give us long-term solutions. And then, we've been voting, but in turn, our internal efficacy is going to go down because we're not seeing progress, lower motivation to vote, less trust in our government. We can't do anything. It's just like a loop. It's a continuous loop.
Exactly. And then if you look at kind of how big our electorate is, we have an electorate of over 41 million people. And especially when you're young and you can't contribute to that electorate, it's really, really difficult for you to feel heard, especially when you look at like the average age of our representatives and senators being so high compared to what the average age of the country is. It's really easy to feel like your interests aren't being represented and you really can't do anything against these issues that you might be really passionate about.
Yeah. And like she said, we have a huge electorate and, we've got like a lot of power. We're able to flip the elections if we wanted. Because right now, I think in the 2024 election, we had a youth voter turnout of about 47%. So yeah, but I think we should talk about some barriers to voting maybe. I think that definitely, besides the efficacy and all, having all these barriers makes it harder for us to get involved even to a further extent.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really hard to vote when you're young, and that kind of contributes to why people think their voter efficacy is low, at least the external factor.
So we can talk. I was going to bring up how in that Harvard political there was an article by the Harvard Political Review, and they talked about how I think 12 states in the United States of America, they don't accept student IDs as voter identification. And that's actually a really big problem because Gen Z is not driving as much anymore. I know I don't have my license and I'm 16, which is embarrassing for being someone from a suburban area.
Girl, I got my license literally like over the age of 17, living
there we go.
45 minutes away from my school. It's pretty bad. Exhibit A is me. That is why it's important for voting barriers to not exist.
No, but really, like licenses, I mean, I want to get pre-registered for voting. Like in Virginia, we can get pre-registered at 16, but not accepting student IDs, that is another barrier because then you have to do so many other things just to fulfill that right that you already should have. So I think that's a big barrier, but as you also climb up, there's some issues for college students as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think a very large percentage of college students, I believe it was 33%, think that they can't...
Yeah, 30%.
Yeah,
Tough Circle.
30% is, according to Tough Circle, cannot, in their view, make a difference in the decision-making at their schools. And it's partially because they don't feel like they can vote, but also partially because I think older generations don't view younger voices as important or as valid as their opinions are. And so I think it's really important to just empower young people in the way that you're teaching them, as well as making sure that things like transport to and from voting booths, polling places, mail-in ballots are really confusing for a lot of people. And a lot of people have cited just the general confusion around going to vote and how many steps it takes to get registered as the main reason that they don't vote.
Yeah, that's that 30% is, it's a lot of college students that were telling the Tough Circle researchers how they have issues with transportation, with, when are the deadlines for voting and all of that stuff. There's a lot of logistical things that are hard to sort out when you're as busy as a college student trying to get your classes together and everything. But it definitely starts earlier than college as well. We're going to backtrack a bit, talk about some elementary level, political socialization. That's a term that we want to bring up.
Yeah, so she's freaking out that AP Gov right now. You're
Yeah,
going to 5 on the exam.
I'm 1 week in, and I'm already, acing this
You're
AP
locking
Gov
in.
class.
Political socialization is essentially, the different factors that contribute to how an individual identifies themselves politically.
Exactly.
And
for example, your parents or your friends. In this discussion, education is going to be one of those factors.
Yeah. I mean, education is important from the children's perspective just because our federal government gives $50 per student per year to STEM education, but only 5 cents to civic education, which is absolutely ridiculous insane. Because that's the foundation that our country is built on.
Right.
But it's also that the political identity of an individual is primarily formed by their education, their parents' education, their parents' beliefs, whether their parents are liberal or conservative, their parents' understanding of civics. And so if you're like me, my parents are very, very educated. You see all the books around me. I was raised to be good at research and good at identifying misinformation and good at forming my own opinions. But not a lot of people have those.
You don't have the resources for that all the time.
Most people don't have those higher level college degrees.
Yeah. We're both from very lucky backgrounds, so
yeah.
I'm super appreciative of that. It's important to have those resources for sure, and that's an insane statistic that they're investing so much in STEM education. I think a lot of the pigeonholing, not just in reference to STEM, but in general other topics, that can be attributed to our digital revolution.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, there's so much information on the internet, it's overwhelming. And also, because of that, it's not like the 70s or 80s, or sorry, not even 80s, but yeah, actually no, 80s, 70s and 80s.
You're giving yourself your age right now. You're showing your young.
Guys, I'm young, okay? If it wasn't already obvious. In the olden days. When Dad used to pull out the newspaper on Sunday mornings. But yeah, I mean, in that way,
Did
kids
your dad
were...
ever pull out a newspaper?
No, I don't even know. He grew up somewhere else.
So I digress.
You digress, okay. But point is, yeah, it's not like kids are constantly exposed to a lot of different areas all the time. It's because the internet allows us to zero in on certain things that we're interested in. And I'm all for that. But also, we don't get a holistic view of how politics and governance is affecting us every day.
Yeah, and not to focus too much on technology because I know we have other things to talk about, but algorithms are kind of the death of critical thinking skills because if you're not making an active effort to diversify your feed and you're just doom scrolling all the time, let's say you're interested in sports and everything on your Instagram feed all the time is sports and you scroll and scroll for hours and it's still sports.
You're not going to know about the different organizations and stuff like that. If in this context, you're not going to know about political things happening on the internet. And also, I mean, it works both ways. If you're only on the political side of the internet, then you're going to probably be, first of all, in an echo chamber for whatever side of the spectrum, ideological spectrum you fall on. And then also, I mean, you have to have other interests that will inform your political beliefs, right?
Yeah, politics isn't just, I believe this, you believe that. It's influenced by all these different factors. It's moral, it's legal, it's practical, it's based on history.
Political socialization.
Exactly.
Also.
And so you can't focus on one thing for your entire life and not try to gain information from multiple perspectives and think that you're actually going to form a belief system that is diverse and is representative of everyone's interests.
So all that to say, we need a lot more, I think, exposure to civic education. We need that built into our educational system right now. There's not, I mean, I didn't take a civics class until 7th grade, and that's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's coming from a different background where my parents talk about politics at the dinner table freely. It's not taboo. So yeah, it's just, we have to build that into our system more. We need to tell kids how important it is. They should be excited to vote when they turn 18.
I mean, if you think about us, we're clearly very invested in politics. We're very invested in our education. And we're still feeling the effects of this lack of investment in civic education. We both go to a school that's very heavily reliant on civic education, on foreign affairs, but we still feel like STEM is overemphasized. And so if we in our very privileged backgrounds and experiences still feel that impact, imagine how bad it is when you're in a rural high school in the middle of Virginia or in the middle of anywhere, for that matter. You're not getting any of that civic education. You're not learning how to critical think. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And not to hate on STEM, but for sure, like, in general, no matter what you're interested in, if you're an athlete, if you're a doctor, you should be an active, informed citizen. We really want to help with that. Yeah. Again, on DemocraZy.
Yeah, like, we're not saying that the government shouldn't be spending $50 per year per student on STEM education.
But we should match that.
We should match it.
With civics.
And I would argue that civics is even more important. I'm not a STEM person, so obviously that's a biased point of view. I'm a math hater.
We're, disclaimer, guys.
We're math haters.
Bias here.
Check your sources, check your biases. But it's still really important. Like, you can't go throughout the world if you don't have an understanding of how that world works.
Exactly. 100%. I mean, you see with cuts to researching right now. Yeah. I mean, it affects us everywhere, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing.
Yeah.
So we got to build that love for civics, or at least that appreciation for civics.
You don't have to love it. You just have to recognize its importance.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one way we can do that, again, we're underage, and it's really important that one way that we can incorporate it in the schools is to give us more decision-making power as young adults.
Yeah.
So Emma can tell you a little bit about her idea.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is an idea held by a lot of people. I don't think it's just my
idea. That's true.
But I think that lowering the voting age to 16, although some people say it's a horrible idea because of the idiot teenager TM. Like, we all know an idiot teenager. TM. I am an idiot teenager sometimes.
Oh, for sure.
Full disclosure, like, I do stupid things, sorry.
Me too.
It's like, I mean, I'm a little less idiot than some people, I hope. But, the point is that we are all idiot teenagers at some point, at some context. The point is that I don't think lowering the voting age to 16 for local small school board elections where the school board is directly determining how much you learn about civics, your education system, I don't think that's a horrible idea. Because if someone is really not invested in politics at all and is the kind of idiot teenager TM that you think would make things more negative for everyone involved, then they're not going to be invested to go out and register to vote and make that change. But also, do you want to talk about kind of your idea of how that's an infinite cycle?
An infinite cycle?
It's like an infinite cycle of disinterest.
Going back to, like, political socialization, like, if you go to a school and then you don't care, they don't teach you to care a lot about civics, and you don't have opportunities to get involved, that is what you're going to teach to your kids when you grow up. And even if it's all subconscious, that just creates a cycle of reduced participation.
Yeah, and it's like that idiot teenager isn't going to want to become a non-idiot teenager without the ability to vote. You know what I mean? It's like...
I mean, yeah, if you reduce the voting age, for example, if idiot teenager... we keep saying idiot teenagers.
Look, idiot teenager, we're
talking about... Okay, let's say uninformed, maybe.
Well, like in the Peanuts, the perspective of the parent that's like, ma, 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 ma. It's like we're doing that from, like, we're pretending, like, this is what we think adults think about.
Right, that's true.
Lowering voting age. But I don't think the teenagers are idiot, but I think people think that the teenagers are idiot.
That's what we mean by idiot teenagers, guys. We're not calling all teenagers idiots.
We think we're very smart and capable.
Yes. But talking about that, if we were to reduce the voting age for local elections to 16, we're actually going to effectively be reducing the number of idiot teenagers, because if they can get more involved, people will want to, be more civically engaged, and that in turn increases internal political efficacy. And so because of that, when you're starting to seek out information about candidates and about issues in your area, you become from idiot teenager to informed teenager. And I think that's why it's so important. You got to make these opportunities for kids to actually have direct influence in their community. Voting is the best tool for that.
Yeah, and even if you're not...
It really is.
Even if you're not pro allowing the youth to vote at age 16, you should still be invested in making sure that they're getting enough funding to learn about these things. They have the opportunity to go through organizations like the League of Women Voters and do things like we're doing. Like, this is a really cool initiative that we've started.
We're so excited about this project.
We're really excited. And so it's just really important that even if you're not pro-youth voting, you feel strongly enough about youth civic engagement that you make active efforts to give people these opportunities. And I think that's what the most important thing is.
Yeah.
And I think with that, we can introduce our guest for the episode. You want to take it away, Charvi?
So today we're going to talk to our beloved president, Joan Porte. She's going to give us a bit of a background on what the League of Women Voters is. And we're going to ask her some questions about, youth engagement, how we can get people more involved, and what she thinks are the issues.
And so with that, we would love to welcome our beloved president of the League of Women Voters, Joan Porte.
Hi, Joan.
Hi, guys.
Hey, we have some questions for you today. So
Uh-oh.
Emma, Emma's going to start.
So can you tell us a little bit about how the League got its start in the United States and how its role in national and local politics has evolved, especially recently?
Sure. The League actually got started slightly before, about 6 months before the 19th Amendment passed. And our leader, Carrie Chapman Catt, was unfortunately one of the unsung suffragettes, but she planned for the long haul. So she gave the League 3 directives. One was to register all these women who now had the right to vote, educate them so that they wouldn't, be as susceptible to their husbands or their fathers saying, oh, just go vote for so and so, and to advocate, because even then, and she knew that women's issues were not the same as men's issues, and women had a voice. And so those are the 3 pronged things that she set up for the League: educate, register, and advocate. And we still do that. We still do those 3 things. Obviously, our issues have changed. Obviously, we've grown. We don't just register women, we register any eligible American citizen. We are no longer just a women's organization. In 72 or 73, I believe it was 72, we started to allow men to join our ranks. And of course, now we don't care. We don't even consider gender or sexual identity as part of, criterion. So that's how we have grown and changed. So, but we're still doing basically what she asked us to do.
Do you see a lot of problems with getting voters engaged, and especially since this is a youth podcast, then especially in relation to youth voters?
Yes. Okay, I'm going to
Tell us
date.
about those problems.
Well, I'm going to date myself here, okay? And I don't really care. I'm a boomer, and baby boomers are getting a lot of flack lately. And I'm tired of it because, and I had this discussion with a young lady once who was like, oh, I'm like, who got the 18-year-old vote? It was the baby boom generation. It was during the Vietnam War when all of our guys were getting slaughtered in Vietnam. And we were like, hey, if you're old enough to go to Vietnam and die, you should be old enough to vote. And we lowered the voting age. That was the baby boomers, right? When I was your age, and I hate people who say that, and I never thought I'd be old enough to say those words, but a woman could not get a credit card in her name unless her father or her husband signed for it. Okay. When, again, if a woman was sexually assaulted, the defense attorney was allowed to bring in every foible, right? So if this woman had an affair with someone, they were allowed to bring that into court to prove that she was deserving of what happened to her because she was some kind of a wanton woman. Okay. When I was a junior in high school, the big debate that we actually had debates on was, could girls wear pants in school? Okay, so we're talking, this is not the dark ages. This is in my lifetime. We are talking about that. You couldn't, like I said, you couldn't get a credit card, you couldn't get a loan. When you got married, I'm old enough to remember, and I'm not that old, but I'm old enough to remember when you looked at the want ads, it would say jobs wanted female, jobs wanted male. When a woman got married, she was no longer referred to in the newspaper as Jane Doe. She was Mrs. John Smith. Okay. This is, and again, I'm going to be 70 in October, so I'm not, creaking and falling over, but I remember this stuff. And so we did this, guys. What are you guys going to do? We gave you all these benefits. And I'm a little bit frustrated. And I know you guys are too. I've spoken to all the members of the youth council. Like, don't let this go away. You've got to continue the fight. We took it this far, and a lot of these things are being rolled back. You know that. You guys have to pick up the fight. So, yes, vote, for goodness sakes. I know it's every year in Virginia. I know it's a pain, but vote. That's
I
my
think that's a good segue into our next question.
okay.
Emma, do you wanna go?
I'm scared.
What
No,
ad-
no, no.
what advice would you give young voters headed into this November just about like the mindset required to vote and what the different factors to think about are?
Well, I'll tell you, I have a very dear friend, known her for decades, and she never voted. And it used to drive me crazy. And one year, she started complaining about a national figure. And I just had it. And I said, look, I love you. I've known you literally for 30 years. I said, but you don't have any right to open your mouth because you didn't vote and you've never voted. And and the next year, she registered to vote. And the thing is, I was very surprised is she got a ballot. She doesn't live in Virginia, but she got her ballot. And she's like, oh my God, I know I shouldn't have done this. It was a year when Maryland had a boatload of stuff on their ballot. And I'm like, no, 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 calm down. You don't have to vote for everything, and we went line by line by line. So the first is there may be some of that fear. Like, I don't know everything that's going on, right? There's no requirement that you have to vote for every single person on that, on every single ballot initiative. It's great if you do, right? But you don't have to. There's no law. No one's going to come and smack you on the head if you just vote for somebody. So start slowly. If you're not sure, what's going on. Now, I live in Arlington. In Arlington, we have county board up. So take a look at who's running for county board. Start slowly. And go to education seminars. We have candidate forums all over the state. We have issue forums. I'm not an expert in every issue. I was a solar lobbyist for a while, so I know something about that. I did some labor lobbying, so I know something about that. But if there's an issue that grabs you, well, then take it. If there's an issue you're not really sure about, you may say, well, I'm not going to vote on that, but I'll learn something. So you don't have to be an expert. I think there's a lot of fear around that. Start slowly and get involved at your pace.
I have a follow-up to that.
Uh-oh.
I think a lot of I think sometimes people get concerned that their vote doesn't go as far. So,
Yeah,
do you think you could speak to how even one vote matters, even if it seems like it's just becoming part of another ocean of other people?
that's true. And I don't understand that, but there is a case, and it happened right here in Virginia not too long ago. I think I may be off on the days, but 17 or 18, down in the Norfolk area, down south there. There was a race, and when they counted all the ballots, it was exactly the same vote. Both candidates got the same exact vote. So they had a recount. Virginia is a recount state only when you're that close. We've got weird recount laws, but recounted. The Democrats thought they had one vote, but the Republicans sued and the judge threw that vote out. So it was, again, dead even. It was for a local race. But they then did, and I love this in Virginia, the way you settle this is you actually pull the names. So they had a big ceremony. They put the person's name in, and some judge pulled it out, and the Republican won. So the Republican got that seat in the House of Legislature, okay, the General Assembly. Just so happened that, Virginia is a strongly divided state, right? We flip red, blue, red, blue. We're very purple. That seat determined who was going to have control of the Virginia legislature. So If one more person on either side or two more people on either side may have voted, they wouldn't have had to go through that, and it would have been a more organic result. And so, because the Republican got their name pulled out of the hat, the Republicans controlled the Virginia legislature for 2 more years. Now, does that happen in every race? Of course not. But I'm sorry, I don't have much patience for there's a lot of people voting and my vote doesn't count. To me, personally, I feel that's lazy. I feel that is a cop out. I don't know if that's still a word. It was a word when I was a kid, but it's no, you don't know that. You don't know. Races are close. We are a wildly divided country. Your vote can count.
I also think that when you do vote, you get you're encouraged to go out and help other people get motivated and go to the booths. So yeah,
Mhm.
that's definitely a great point. And since we were visiting history anyway, just to satisfy my own curiosity, I know the league used to kind of host a lot of the presidential debates back in the day. Is there a particular reason why they stopped doing that?
Um, there's a lot of reasons. The biggest official reason is that there was a lot of change. It was taken out of this presidential commission to do this, and there was more of a push to put in certain people asking the questions and certain people asking the questions. It made it a little more partisan, and that was the big reason. There was also a push by some candidates to get the league out. It was the beginning of this mindset that the league they're nothing but Democrats. I'm like, really? And I said this to somebody once. I said, really? Well, when we had the redistricting battle, which now is coming back into the news, it was the Democrats who opposed the nonpartisan people choose who their candidates are. The Democrats were against that. And I had screaming matches with Democrats who were furious that the lead was doing this. And I'm like, what part of nonpartisan don't you understand? Now, as we are a very progressive organization, obviously we came out of women's right to vote, which was a scandalous idea from 1845 to 1920. um, and we came out of that. We are progressive, but that doesn't mean we are partisan. And that's the tricky part. Now, of course, we're taking up a lot of issues because we feel it's defending democracy. We want to defend the Constitution. We want to defend the right to vote. We want to defend the Voting Rights Act, for goodness sakes. That shouldn't be partisan. That should be everybody who's interested in voting and allowing people to vote in a free and fair election. That's not partisan, guys. That's the way things should be. And, we have to just keep pushing back on that.
With that, how do you think the league's role has kind of evolved over the last few decades, especially as things have gotten much more strongly partisan? And what's your kind of vision for the league's future, particularly in Virginia, as that partisanship progresses?
Yeah, well, we're in a tricky period, as everyone's saying. I think the league did evolve greatly because there was a great deal of racism in the league in the early days. And there was a book written by our first African American president who detailed that very clearly. I mean, Black women were not allowed to speak at conventions. Native American women had to have their own leads. I mean, there was a lot of embedded racism in the league. And that has obviously been something that we are pushing out in many ways, but we had to reconcile with our own history about that. Um, and I think the push to activism, again, the league was always kind of known as these nice little old ladies who did voter registration. And we still do voter registration, right? That's one of our raison d'etre. But this idea of becoming more advocate, more out there, more saying no, the issues are important, has definitely changed over, I would say, the past 25 years. The Virginia League has become much more active. Again, Virginia is a southern state. Virginia was the capital of the Confederacy. Virginia had this kind of image of, again, the little old ladies doing voter reg. But I think we have moved greatly in the past 6, 7 years, and I'm hoping I'm continuing that to put out there that this is advocacy. It's important. It's just as important as voter registration. It's just as important as education. We have to be out there because, I don't have to tell you guys, we are in a constitutional crisis. The league has established that. We have Unite and Rise 8.5. We've got to push back on any issues that will hinder our constitution and hinder due process and hinder people's rights. And we just have to do that, and we will.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that again segues well into the next question. I wanted to ask, with this constitutional crisis, polarization tends to be a buzzword. And how can teenagers specifically, but even in general, how can we try and generate those spaces that are safe for nonpartisanship and, across the aisle collaboration?
Yeah, it's tough. I think, and that's why we started the youth council, because quite honestly, no one is going to listen to a baby boomer. I didn't listen to baby boom. They weren't baby boomers then, to the old people then. So I think the idea I would love to see us have LWV chapters in high schools and colleges. We do now have them at George Mason in Fairfax and William and Mary. We're starting one at Mary Washington. But I think having a club, a league chapter, if you will, in all of the high schools, because if it's not in front of you, okay, and I'll tell you what a nerd I was. There was in 73 when I was a senior in high school, there was the meat boycott. Meat prices were very high, and there was a meat boycott. And I was the only jerk in my cafeteria. And I went to a high school with like 4,000 students. And I was the only jerk out there with, boycott meat. And of course, some people did. And of course, a lot of the boys were jeering, you know how high school boys are. But if I had had a group of people behind me, right, to do that, it would have obviously looked better than one kid standing there. But having a safe space, if you will. So if you start a LWV chapter in your high school and you meet after, on Monday nights or whatever, and you say, okay, we're going to go talk to our peers in the lunchroom about voter registration. And we're going to do this. And you go as a group and you have that kind of support, it becomes more natural. It becomes more acceptable. It becomes, something that I say, okay, that's kind of cool. That's something I can do. You'll still be classified by some as nerds, but nerds rule the world, right? So I think the idea here is creating that atmosphere where, yeah, they can talk. And why can't you have student run candidate debates? I'd love to see that
Yeah,
with students asking the questions that affect you. Why should it just be us? I would love to see that. I'd love to see um, environmental, a study on the environment. That's going to affect you guys way more than it's going to affect us. Or women's rights or reproductive rights or all of this stuff, and having educational forums at the high school level and at college level too. But I think we need to do it all in the high schools as well.
for sure.
Yeah.
And that really relates to our conversation before, Emma, about political efficacy and,
Yep.
different ways we can improve that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a really good kind of shift into our very last question for you. Do you have any like really specific resources and tips to get involved with the league? I know we talked about creating high school chapters, but specifically like the process of how to create those chapters and get involved with more local protests and advocacy that might be slightly less overwhelming than something on a very large nation or statewide level.
Yeah, I think the chapters are one. I think getting involved in Unite and Rise, which is the League of Women Voters National Leagues program to motivate 8.5 million voters to take action on this constitutional crisis. And we actually have like daily, and I can give you the Unite and Rise information that you can put out, and you want to put the QR code up somewhere later on, where they have daily actions. So it's not, you don't have to, I mean, I'm not a big protester, right? I don't like to schlep in and, protest, but, there's daily actions that you can do to organize. There's daily letters you can write on this letter. You can do this. So Unite and Rise is all about getting people involved because it's based on the theory that's been proved that if you move 3.5% of the population in nonviolent civic activity, it's always a winner. And so that just motivating people. And what I liked about it, as I said, is it breaks it down. So you may want to protest, okay? And you may want to do a high school protest over here. Or you may just want to organize a letter writing to get ICE out of DC or get ICE out of Virginia. I mean, there's 4,000 people have been arrested in Virginia. Estimates are that 3/4 of them have no criminal record. What's going on in Virginia? So yes, and it can seem daunting, and that's the problem. Like, oh my God, the world's going to, but there are little tiny things that Unite and Rise that you can do every day that can be part of the program. So I think that would be very, very good.
Great, and I think that's a good place to wrap up. Thank you so much
Well,
for
thank you.
joining us.
Well, and I want to thank you guys. I was going to do this in the beginning, but we got right into questions. I mean, I know doing a podcast is not easy, and I know you have some folks behind the scenes as well. And so I want to thank you all for, taking up the podcast and regenerating it and putting your spin on it and doing all the work you're doing. So we really appreciate it.
Yeah, we're so excited. We love this so much, and we're glad that you could join us today. We keep getting that part offbeat. It's so funny.
It's okay. Every time we do this, it's going to be offbeat until like multiple months from now, but it's okay because Peter's song is great.
Yes.
We appreciate you, Peter. We'll get you the Chipotle. You want to say thank you to our audience?
Yeah. Thanks so much, guys, for tuning in to DemocraZy today. We were so excited to bring y'all this first episode. There's just so much in store. We got some really awesome episodes coming up. October, we got misinformation. September, I should probably have started with September. That's supposed to be on kind of, how are some other ways that we can bring civics into education? And yeah, we got so much more in store.
Yeah,
so
I'm
excited.
Very excited. Once again, I'm going to keep on shamelessly plugging our socials that we've worked very hard on. Follow us on Instagram at @democrazy_pod, as well as on Twitter and YouTube.
Only gonna dead name Twitter, by the way.
Twitter and YouTube, and the League of Women Voters. Yeah. And on Spotify, it's DemocraZy.
League of Women Voters everywhere else, though, yeah.
Yes, we have great things happening, and if you go to our Instagram, we'll also have a little link tree in the bio that will give you all of these links, so it's very easy for you to
Courtesy of Emma.
Absolutely. So, at the end of every episode, we are going to spotlight a local, state, or maybe sometimes even national organization that we think is...
And it's not sponsored, by the way.
Not sponsored. Although I don't think you can be sponsored by a nonprofit.
Yeah, that's true.
But we are going to spotlight a really good organization that kind of aligns with our purpose for each episode at the very end of the episode.
Yeah.
If you want to take that away, Charvi.
Yeah, so I want to spotlight the Civics Center today. It's a really cool, obviously, nonprofit organization, nonpartisan, and they have a lot of these awesome free webinars about, how you can get involved in your community, and they have a lot of actually voter registration drive trainings, so you can start your own drive. I really recommend that you check it out, see if there's something you can do, bring to your school, and yeah.
Yeah, and with that, we are going to sign off. We will see
Hold the phone. You guys need to watch Stranger Things, by the way.
Okay, bye. We'll see you next month. Don't listen to her.